This workshop is focused on the duties of a secretary and recording minutes of a meeting. The Secretary Basics course will help you understand the importance of the position of secretary from a legal and practical perspective. The duties and responsibilities will be reviewed in detail, as well as the available resources and the materials and supplies you will need to successfully perform this position. You will learn about motions and types of votes and how to record them accurately in the minutes. The format of the minutes and the various approval processes will be presented. Armed with the information provided in this course, along with some helpful hints, you will feel confident that you are maintaining relevant and accurate records of your PTA's business. Never say, "I'm just the secretary." The secretary's job is important to any association. A secretary is responsible for keeping accurate records of the PTA's proceedings. Did you know that a president and secretary are the only required non-profit officers in Texas? The records you create are your PTA's history. Minutes are a legal document and are just as critical to financial reviews as monetary reports. The Secretary's duties are listed in your PTA bylaws. We will explain each duty in more detail here. The full Secretary Resource Guide provides additional information regarding the secretarial duties. Confirm all Executive Board members have registered with Texas PTA within 15 days of their election or appointment. File names of delegates and alternates with the Council PTA Secretary before the first regular delegate meeting, and submit any changes in writing prior to the next delegate meeting in order to be eligible to vote. Only those delegates that are on record with the Council Secretary will be granted voting privileges. If a change needs to be made, do so in writing before the next Council delegate meeting. Send, or cause to be sent, Executive Board and membership meeting notices. Typically, the President does this, but they could ask the Secretary to perform this duty. Be responsible for correspondence. Compose letters by the direction of the Executive Board or President. Read correspondence received to the Executive Board or membership. Record the minutes of all Executive Board and membership meetings. This includes minutes from both the Executive Board and membership meetings in notebooks that you have for that purpose. Destroy notes after minutes have been approved. Present the statement review by non-signer reports at each Executive Board meeting. Each month's report should be submitted to the Secretary upon completion by the non-signer and presented at the next Executive Board meeting. The Secretary is responsible for passing the report on to the Treasurer after having received it. Have a current copy of this PTA bylaws and, if applicable, standing rules. The bylaws template is often updated by National or Texas PTA, so it advised to request a copy each fall at the beginning of the school year to ensure you have the latest version. Confirm the membership has adopted and the Executive Board annually reviews the PTA's records retention policy. A blank copy is in the Secretary Resource Guide if needed, and the filled-in, adopted policy is kept in the Secretary's permanent records. Confirm that all Executive Board members have signed the PTA confidentiality, ethics, and conflict of interest agreement, and maintain the original copy. Maintain the required PTA documents including those that must be annually reviewed by the Executive Board and adopted by membership, unless policies are incorporated into the standing rules. The e-commerce policy. The social media guidelines. Records retention policy. Approved plans of work. The confidentiality, ethics and conflict of interest agreement adopted and signed by all Executive Board members. Certificates to confirm all Executive Board members have completed all required foundations training. Membership rosters, which shall not be released to outside interests, and any other documents deemed necessary by this PTA's records retention policy. Collect and preserve documents relating to the PTA's history. If you have a historian, they will perform this duty, but otherwise, the Secretary maintains these documents. Present a written summary of all PTA's events, programs, and significant information at the annual meeting if no historian. Again, if you have a historian, they would do this. This is simply a summary of the meetings, events, and activities of the PTA over the school year. Not be a member of the Financial Reconciliation Committee, and present Executive Board and membership meeting minutes and related documents to the Financial Reconciliation Committee no more than 10 days after the end of the fiscal year. As Secretary, You are often given additional duties, and these are the most common and are considered effective strategies for PTAs. Maintain an inventory of the PTA's property or assets, such as your popcorn machine, extra t-shirts and pencils, or the carnival games. Keep a file of all committee reports. Keep copies of all paperwork distributed at all meetings. Keep these organized for easy reference. Give the Executive Board report. The Secretary or another officer may give the report of the Executive Board meetings. The minutes of the Executive Board meeting are never read to the membership and are not considered an Executive Board report. The Executive Board report contains its actions and recommendations. When recommendations are contained in the report, the person giving the report moves the adoption of each recommendation. As Secretary, you have a full voice, meaning that you may vote, file motions, and nominate candidates. Arrive early for a seat near the President. Sitting by the President enables you to clarify what was said and receive paperwork. It's best to keep the minutes record book up to date and signed. Remember, all minutes must be signed by the person creating them. Call the meeting to order if the President and Vice Presidents are absent and preside until the Assembly elects a temporary chair. If you must preside, it should only be for a short time, and always appoint someone else to take the minutes during that time. A secretary is called on to confirm quorum regularly and periodically to count a rising vote and have ballots available in order to assist the parliamentarians in their duties. Quorum must be established to conduct business and must be noted in the minutes. If it is necessary to count a rising vote, which typically would occur if a voice vote was not clearly in favor or against, be sure to have at least 2 people counting so all votes can be verified. For clarity in the minutes, you may request, through the chair, that motions be in writing. A sample motion form is in the Secretary Resource Guide and could be copied and kept on hand. It's important that motions are recorded word for word. More details on motions will be discussed later in this session. There are many resources that you might find useful to you as Secretary. First, the Texas PTA Resource Guides, starting with the Basic Secretary Resource Guide. You might also like to have a copy of the President and Parliamentarian Resource Guide. These extra 2 guides will help you understand the bigger picture of meeting governance. Most Executive Board positions have a page within the Texas PTA website, www.txta.org, where additional resources are just a click away. Having a copy of your PTA's past minutes is helpful in providing the history of past events, agendas, and the style of minutes your PTA is used to. You will also be able to see what business is typically conducted each month. Having a copy of Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, RONR, can help with the parliamentary procedures governing meetings. This information is also helpful when drafting the minutes. Feel free to consult with your council secretary, if applicable, or the Texas PTA secretary, as well as your field service representative. If you don't know your council leaders or your FSR, please let us know so we can put you in touch. National PTA at TXTA.org also offers extensive e-learning courses. Each officer and chair, including the secretary, should present a plan of work to the Executive Board for approval. A plan of work helps keep everyone focused and on track. The Texas PTA Secretary Resource Guide provides an example plan of work for the secretary. So what exactly are minutes? Meeting minutes are a legal document or recording of what action was taken during a meeting. Note that the actions are recorded, not what was said, which is also known as discussion. Minus the minutes should never reflect the opinion of the secretary or any member for that matter, favorable or otherwise, on anything said or done. Minus the secretary is not expected to summarize nor capture the discussion of others. Minutes are taken to protect the organization and the members who participated in the meeting. Minutes should be kept as brief as possible and should only reflect actions taken at the meeting. Motions are proposals the PTA must consider and require that the group do something. A motion begins with I move, and then the proposal. As secretary, record a motion by starting your writing with the person's name moved to. A second is required to begin discussion on the action proposed unless it comes from a committee or the Executive Board. Remember, the name of the one who seconded is not necessary to capture unless requested. The presiding officer, often the President, repeats the motion and conducts the vote. For each new motion, You will want to begin a new paragraph. Remember to capture the name of the maker of the motion. Be sure to note that the motion was seconded. Again, the name of the seconder is not recorded. Record the type of vote and the outcome of the vote, pass or fail, of the motion. The types of votes are outlined in the next slide. Remember, personal opinions and details of debate or discussion are not included. Make note of any amendments that are approved. If an amendment fails to pass, the amendment is not recorded. If the vote was conducted by ballot, record the total votes cast, the number of votes for and against, and the number of illegal votes. When a counted vote is taken, record the totals for and against. There are multiple types of votes that can be taken. A voice vote is used for most votes, allowing for a verbal response in favor or against. A ballot vote is a written response in favor/against or the name of a candidate to elect. It is important that a motion is made to destroy the submitted ballots after a ballot vote has been taken. You may need to notify the chair if this is overlooked. In addition to those types, an emergency vote by electronic means or by telephone is another method of voting for executive boards only. In an emergency situation, the executive board may vote by phone, email, or other electronic means if authorized by the president. Members shall have at least 24 hours to cast their votes. A two-thirds vote of the entire executive board is required for adoption, and the vote shall be recorded in the minutes of the next regular meeting of the executive board. There are 3 methods to approve the minutes. 1. They may be read out loud. In this case, the secretary stands and reads the minutes, and corrections, if any, are noted. If there are no corrections, the presiding officer may say, "Hearing no corrections, the minutes are approved as read." This is considered general consent. 2. The minutes may also be distributed for review. To do this, a copy with draft marked on each page may be given only to members. Draft is marked on the document so that if people take the minutes home, they know there may have been corrections. The copy for the record book does not need a draft written on it, as it will be corrected by hand. 3. Another option is to appoint a committee of 3 which appointed by the president or presiding chair during the meeting. All 3 members sign and date the minutes as corrected/approved. Minutes approved by the committee are not presented for approval. The president simply states, "The minutes of the date meeting were approved by a committee consisting of names." If someone wishes to correct those minutes, they may, but the president does not ask for corrections. After the minutes have been approved, the secretary writes, "Approved as read," or printed, or "Approved as corrected," the date of approval, and the secretary's signature. It is important to remember that minutes are approved by the body that created them. Executive board minutes are available only to the executive board, while membership meeting minutes are available to the entire membership. They are not, however, available to the general public. Therefore, do not publish meeting minutes in newsletters or post on doors. Unless password protected, do not post on websites. And as a special note, minutes of a regular meeting cannot be approved at a special meeting. Depending on whether they were distributed or read, corrections may be handled in various ways. The number of corrections during the meeting can be minimized if the minutes are sent to the board/committee to review in advance. Corrections may then be sent directly to the secretary prior to the meeting. The draft presented at the meeting is the version that is approved as presented, printed, or corrected. If minutes are not available for approval at a meeting, then those minutes are approved at the next meeting. Minutes should be approved in the order that the meetings occurred, the oldest ones first. Correct in red ink on the record book copy once they have been presented, or use red text and the strike-through feature if you are correcting minutes digitally. If an error is noticed after the minutes have been approved, a 2/3 vote is required for change. As previously mentioned, approved minutes are signed and dated by the secretary and committee members if used. This outline pertains to a typical membership meeting agenda. Executive board meetings will follow a similar format, most likely without the ceremonial items at the beginning, pledges, etc., and no report of the executive board or program topic. Here are a few helpful hints that will make your job as secretary easier. Ask your president for a copy of the agenda before the meeting. By adding spaces between each agenda item, You can use this as a template for taking notes. Create a saved template on the computer for minutes. If you are not present at a meeting, the president should appoint a secretary pro tem. If this happens, the substitute drafts the minutes and gives them to the secretary, who is the keeper of official documents. The minutes are approved as usual. If possible, let the president know in advance so preparations can be made. Send the minutes from the previous meeting to be presented and approved even if you are unable to attend. Complete the minutes as soon as possible after the meeting, ideally within 3 to 5 days. After that, your memory and ability to read your writing will begin to fade and the job will be increasingly difficult. Release minutes only after consulting with the president. The president authorizes the distribution of the minutes. For the executive board, it's advisable to send them out as soon as possible after the meeting. As secretary, you may record the meeting, but here are some considerations. There may be technical issues with recording. Requires 100% consent of participants. It inhibits discussion. Disposal of the recording and its possible use in lawsuits if there is no policy on the disposition of recordings. Texas PTA's staff and volunteer leaders are here to answer any of your questions regarding your position. Our toll-free number is 1-800-TALK-PTA or email us directly. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope that this training has been beneficial, and it will make your work in PTA easier and more enjoyable. If you have any questions in the future, please know that your field service representative and council leaders are always ready to help.